Hey, my name's Brian and I'm going to show you how to build a hand plane for body surfing. First thing you got to do, of course, is to come up with the shape of your hand plane and what size it's going to be. I drew mine out on this piece of wood. To cut out that shape, you can either use a jigsaw, which most people have or might have access to, or a bandsaw, which is a much better tool, but probably a lot of people don't have one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Okay, so there's the outline of the board. Sorry I couldn't show it all to you, but I had to pay attention. Couldn't hold the phone and watch the blade while I cut it, but you get the idea. I'm almost ready to start shaping my hand plane. I'm going to be using an angle grinder with some really rough sandpaper on it, and then a belt sander to do some more work to finish the shape. And then some of you, if you're familiar with woodwork, might know that a hand plane can be used to do some shaping as well, but I really don't recommend them for this. You need a high quality hand plane with a really sharp blade to do it. Before you start, you want to pick what's going to be the top and the bottom of your hand plane. I'm going to have this as the top so that when I grind off the edge, I don't have to worry about that not being on the lower surface here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off this whole lip all the way around to smooth it down to meet the bottom so that it has a nice smooth top. Okay, so as you can see, this thing will take off a lot of material in a short time. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking off the material all the way around the outside and along the tail fin, and then I will show you the next step. Okay, so the rough shape of the top of the board is done. You see how that looks? And now what I'm going to do is start to shape the bottom of the board, and I'm going to use the belt sander to do that. And the first thing that you want to do is put some rocker on the bottom of the board. And what you want to do is take off essentially the first half of the board and just scrape off the front of the board so that it has a little bit of rocker, so that when I'm done, if I push down on the front of the board right here, it should rock a little bit. And that's so that the front of the board doesn't get plowed into the wave. It'll be a little bit higher than the rest of the board as you go down the face. So it's starting to rock a little bit, but I want to give it some more rocker. So then I'm going to belt sand the whole bottom of it, belt sand the whole top of it, and I'll move on to the next step. And now the next thing to do is on the bottom, you want to make the bottom surface of your plane concave. So I'm going to sand out the bottom middle of this hand plane with the angle grinder so that the entire thing is concave. And you want the bottom of your board concave so that it holds the face of the wave as you're sliding. So that's next. Okay, so I'm going to continue to make the bottom of this concave from the front to the back and from side to side all the way across. You don't want to make it too deep, probably a 1/4 of an inch deep is plenty for this size board, and I'll show it to you when I'm done. So it's starting to look like a decent hand plane. You can see from the front, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it's got the concave in there. Still got the front to back rocker. See on the back's kind of lifted off a little bit, so it's got the concave there. Now I'm going to go ahead and start sanding these deep grooves that are off the back with the belt sander. Then I'll start the finish sanding. Okay, I'm done shaping the board for the most part. It's all rough sanded in. I'm going to start the finish sanding process with a finish sander with 100 grit sandpaper. Then I'll probably move down to 150 grit sandpaper to make it really smooth. And then I will start hand sanding it to get all the small scratches out. Okay, after I do this for a while, all the rough edges from the rough sanding will be gone and I can move on to the next sandpaper. So I am almost done hand sanding it. I just finished hand sanding it with the 100 grit. Now I'm gonna, or the 150 grit. Now I'm gonna move to the 220 grit. One thing I didn't mention, make sure when you're hand sanding, everything has to go with the grain so that you're not scratching up the surface. You can see that it's pretty clean. Last thing, you might want to hit this edge when you still have the finish sander going, because the more you work on the top and the bottom of it, you're going to end up with a sharp lip there, and you don't want a sharp lip there. You're going to get some stitches if this thing bangs you in the head while you're under some deep surf. So I'm going to go ahead and do some more sanding on this with 220 sandpaper to make it as smooth as I possibly can. Okay, so the board is all done and sanded, and now I'm going to talk about putting a finish on it, so we'll move to that next. There's several types of finishes you can use. I prefer to use linseed oil. So if you get boiled linseed oil and turpentine, the other products will sit on the surface to protect the wood. The thing I like about linseed oil is that it seeps into the wood to protect it. So turpentine is a solvent and linseed oil is what's going to put a finish on it. And I'll show you how to do that. And you will see that this piece of wood will go from this dull looking finish to a deep, rich finish. Okay, so I've mixed half the turpentine and half the linseed oil in this little bowl, a little plastic bowl. You're not going to need much, so you don't need to use too much. Then just go ahead and grab a dish towel from your wife or your mom or whoever. They're going to love that. Cut it into a small piece, and then just dunk some in there and start to apply it onto the surface of the wood. And you'll see that the linseed oil is penetrating the wood, and instead of just that light grain, it's starting to give that deep texture. Read the label to see if you should be wearing gloves. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Come on in tight. So there's the surface of the wood now after it's got it on there. That's what it used to look like. And that's it. Okay, so I put the linseed oil on this a little while ago. The last thing that we're going to be doing is putting on the straps. I use straps that are about the width of a seat belt. This one, I have a Velcro strap on that board. On this board, it's not a Velcro strap, it's just a single strap. But it fits my hand just right. And then on this old board, smaller board for bigger surf, works great. It has a really concave bottom, but it has a smaller strap that's about right for the size that I'm doing. This is another board I'm working on with a fishtail, still working on that. And here's another board that's small like that one. That I can use in bigger surf. This board that I made, so you guys know, is about 6.5 inches wide by 11 inches long. So that's about the size of most of the boards that I make. I find them to be really good in the big surf and the smaller surf. You can find these straps, I don't know, Home Depot. I like to, you can put the straps on by just using a screw with a flat head like that will hold the material down. I go a little crazy and buy an angle bracket like that and cut it, and then file it down and then paint it black, and then you can use some smaller screws to cover the entire length of the strap so that it doesn't rip out when you're in heavy surf. So these things should work fine. I see them on a lot of commercial boards on the internet, but you know, I don't know, I'm crazy, so I'll cut those down like I said and shape them a little bit and paint the screws and the piece itself with some Rust-Oleum black paint so that it all looks nice and clean. All right, so that's how you make a hand plane for body surfing. I hope you enjoyed watching that as much as I enjoyed making that board. After you make a few, you can start experimenting with different designs and different sizes to make a board that fits your style. If you have any tools, you can start using different types of woods and making fancier designs in your hand planes to make them look cool. Anytime you're at Newport, come on by. I'm usually body surfing down by the river jetties around 44th Street. You can usually see me from pretty far away when I'm in the water by my bald spots, so hang loose. That's it. Hey everybody, I just thought I would show you what the finished product looks like. Here's the shape of the board. Turned out really good. I'm very happy with it. See, it has some nice concave there to hold the side of the wave. I put several finishes or several coats of the linseed oil on this. Just so you know, they don't sell turpentine in California anymore, so you'll have to use mineral spirits, or you can just use linseed oil too if you want. When you put these straps on, I forgot to mention that you should probably fold under the side of the strap so that it holds the board better and doesn't fray over time. And if you're putting these screws too close to the edge, you might want to pre-drill before you put the screws in, or it might cause the board to crack if you're really close to the edge. But otherwise, this is the finished product. It looks great. Good luck on building your own. Anytime you're in Newport, come by and say hi. Maybe I'll be body surfing down at the wedge or down at the, oh shit.